and it is our liability to educate even the client, because most of the client are only run by Pinterest and mostly run by internet images. They feel that's how it should look like. But if you really ask them and go and ask them after a year or two, they will tell, like, it's like, I think we have wasted our money and energy because we are unable to maintain it. I mean, like, we are giving so much of designs which is absolutely not maintainable, and they invariably spend on someone, like, who has to do housekeeping and stuff like that, even for a regular residence. So I felt like, that is something where we have to strike a balance. Design cannot be taught. Design has to come from yourself, and I don't believe that, or rather I don't trust that process. Design can be taught. Design is absolutely teachable, and it's absolutely, like, doable in terms of a great response to the particular situation or the solution. It is only the experience which cannot be taught. Hi everyone, my name is Babjee. I'm an architect. I run the company called Vernacular Building Solutions Private Limited. We do projects in architecture as well as landscape. I've done my master's in landscape architecture from School of Architecture and Planning. So we do projects both in architecture as well as landscape, and we do few projects in interior when the project demand is there or when the client demands an interior work. But principally, like, we believe as a philosophy is how we collaborate with other professionals, especially it can be like other architects, architecture firms, it can be other landscape firms also, it can be sometimes like ecologists, horticulturists, and it's going to be a collaborative methodology. So basically we personally felt like, though it has been not taught to us, but it is kind of like imbibed into us, like, in the design field, architects forms the pinnacle of the pyramid, but we principally feel that we are all part of the same spectrum on the same platform. So that is exactly the reason why we thought, like, we should come down onto the regular platform where client is also on the same platform, contract is also on the same platform. So we kind of want to collaborate with everyone, and that was a very, very inspiring experience, as well as, like, very intriguing experience also, because sometimes we think as a designer, like, only we can give solutions and stuff like that, but it is the other way around most of the times, and it is only our finesse for the artistic expression and stuff like that. Those things actually add more value as an architect when we come into the in the forum of design. But eventually, like, as a designer, we personally feel like the economics of the project is more important rather than the design per se, because most of the times, like, we have never been taught in college about the economics of design. That is something which is always told, like, yes, as a designer you are free to design. Your creative spree shouldn't be, like, curtailed because of the economics and or the fund and those things. But I presume, like, these constraints like economics, they actually give us more challenge, and they ask us to do more better design when it comes to, like, a design in reality, in real sense. So that way, like, that is one thing, and my journey is well curated by myself. I mean, that's what I would say. Principally, like, after my UG, I did my masters in landscape. That is because, like, I thought, like, in the same what do you call the same spree of design and the same zone of learning and stuff, like, I thought, like, I want to do my masters. And after my masters, I joined in an office where I worked from the consultant point of view. So a landscape architect I worked with, and I was very happy doing the design. I thought, like, my designs were, like, really great, and the kind of projects which we were handling were pretty huge. So I thought I've like really got it. But then something else happened, like, I figured out, like, the triangle of architecture is, like, client, the consultant and the contractor. So I had been from the consultant point of view. Then I thought, like, let me see how it is from the client point of view. So I joined a client's office as a in-house architect, and I just could stay only for a year because it was totally a different ball game, because it was more of a corporate setup rather than the design front. So then after that, like I took a point like I should be from the contractor end. So then I joined L&T. So with L&T, like it was like almost 5 years. So that is exactly the breaking point where I could find out like I am one of the man in the spectrum, because I had to collaborate with the electrical engineer, with the structural engineer, with everyone on board, So and then I understood like from the other end of the tunnel, in the sense like when you design you only see the product, how it should look like, but how it is exactly getting executed. Now, and what are the various stages behind the execution? So those things were like very much important when it was from the contractor side. So it is always a tussle between the contractor and the designer. But I felt like the contractors do have a serious issue, like the safety of the project, like there should be like proper safe man hours. I mean the doability, the workability of a design. I mean we really don't understand like how it is. What is the wind velocity of at the 11th floor or 12th floor when we want to go for a pergola connecting two buildings. But I have literally like been on a gondola or a working platform, and the wind sway and everything, and you have to really wear all the safety harness and stuff like that. So we have to go there and check it whether it is done as per the design. So then I understood like we are actually doing many things only for the the aesthetics of it and not for the functionality of it. So then I found like we should never do anything only for the aesthetics. If there is any functionality behind it, then I think we can really do a design which is like and it is our liability to educate even the client. Because most of the client are only run by Pinterest and mostly run by internet images. They feel that's how it should look like. But if you really ask them and go and ask them after a year or two, they will tell like it's like, I think we have wasted our money and energy because we are unable to maintain it. I mean like we are giving so much of designs which is absolutely not maintainable. And they invariably spend on someone like who has to do housekeeping and stuff like that, even for a regular residence. So I felt like that is something where we have to strike a balance. And it is not like I have found out an answer or something. It has always been there. Our ancestors have been like really smart to find out answers for all these things. So that is the reason why like I have coined my office as Vernacular Building Solutions. It is not the vernacular materials which we really think about. It is also even the vernacular ideas. I mean, we have always like constructed houses without architects. I mean, 100 years before, like none of us actually went to an architect to construct a house or something. So they had their own vernacular idea. They understood their local context. They understood the local weather conditions, climate, as well as the land terrain and how the water moves and stuff like that. Even they know about their soil very well. And that is exactly the response was. So, and when I intrigue all these questions like why exactly architect comes into a role, I found out like we are only facilitators. We don't have any say in terms of like taking a decision for someone else. We have to take a decision only to facilitate their vision. And that is exactly what our only purpose of being an architect. Otherwise, like as today we know, like I think even a court saying has been told, like Supreme Court saying has told, like whoever has done architecture can also practice architecture, and people who have not done BArch, they can also practice architecture. Or rather, like they can also do design. So if that is the case, I think that's true. I mean, in a sense, anyone who can design can actually take a decision. But how best the design is going to be facilitating the client is something where we have to like hone our skills. So that way we felt like we generally do our practice. In our practice, we go and talk to the latent knowledge in the local community. Before even addressing the problems in terms of the design alone, we go and talk to the people, local people in the site. We get to know what exactly their personal issues are. So we kind of like collate all this information and put it into a chart or a matrix where we understand how exactly we can intervene. Otherwise, we have no role to play, to be very frank. As architects, we have no role to play in terms of what will be the future. It is only how we facilitate it such that the future doesn't be like, whatever may be the eventualities, it doesn't fall back in a very bad way. That is the only thing which we can do as an architect. Say for example, this lockdown is a very famous example. because after lockdown, like, we thought, like, many things could be sorted out, but I think lockdown really made the whole economics or the matrix of the economics into a totally different way, where we have to work from home, and the whole culture of traveling has changed, and this whole culture of working in an office has changed. So though we thought, like, that is exactly how architecture should be designed, and that is exactly how spaces should be designed, these kind of eventualities totally change our perspective. I mean, and that's exactly what happens even in landscaping and stuff like that. We do beautiful gardens and stuff like that. Who knows, like, we have never understood about the tectonics of this plate, of the location. We have never understood what is the flood levels or flood plains of that location. So we do it, then some kind of natural calamity comes and rips it out, and that time we kind of blame it. I mean, it's our responsibility to, like, check out what is the context is. So I mean, and in this particular purview, like, I personally felt like one book which really helped us out as a college goer as well as a student. Always I remain a student forever because I want to learn from every single corner. There's a book written by Edward T. White, and it's the book called Site Analysis. I would recommend to all the students throughout, I mean, whoever is doing architecture. Why? Because, like, he's a person who has actually put the entire parameter of design into three important components. One is like context, another one is user, and the third one is program. I think if we can actually assimilate all these three things for any project or any product also, we will hit the design parameters in perfect sync. And it is a common say, like, in colleges, like, they say design cannot be taught. Design has to come from yourself, and I don't believe that, or rather I don't trust that process. Design can be taught. Design is absolutely teachable, and it's absolutely, like, doable in terms of a great response to the particular situation or the solution. It is only the experience which cannot be taught. Because I come from a different background, my experiences are different, whereas a person from a different background will have totally a different parameter in terms of experience. But in terms of design, all these things have a natural response. Like, say for example, if there is a fire, my immediate response is to stay away from it. Now there is nothing like, a Chinese will not respond in the same way, or an American will not respond in a different way. It's nothing of that sort. So these design parameters, like a context, say for example, if a terrain is very steep, my immediate response to it is, like, to walk up the terrain in a fashion where it is not very strenuous to me. Now that is my immediate response. If say for example the user, if it is a very aged person, naturally the immediate response for that aged person is, like, we shouldn't give him more strain. The ramp should be 1:12 or 14. That is exactly the response we give. So these things are absolutely, like, it doesn't fall under, this can be taught basically. These numbers can be taught, these parameters can be taught, and similarly program. Any hospital, even in UK or in India, every hospital have its own emergency location. That is never going to change. Similarly, operation theatres will be in a similar format. That also can be taught, which is available in TSS or the time saver standards or Newford. So these things are available. It is only a matter of, like, how you put them into a crucible and give them. And after that, like 70 to 80% you have taught them the design, what exactly to be done. And the next 20% is exactly his experience. I mean, if he had been to a hotel which is, like, like very posh and things like that, his immediate reflection in doing the design will be, like, in response to that experience what he had done. Okay. Whereas a person who has never seen a 7-star hotel or a 5-star hotel, his immediate response would be, like, in that similar fashion or whatever fashion it is, but his parameters would be, like, perfect. Okay. Because that can be always taught in colleges, in any design. So that is something which we have to, as an architect, we should always believe that, design can be taught. Mm-hmm. When you leave it scot free, when you tell, like, design is something which you have to experience and you have to do it, what happens is, like, he is in a fix. Because for past till 12th standard, he has been taught. Every single thing has been taught to him, though it is not taught in the right sense where how it is applicable. For example, I mean, even till now, many people don't know where they are going to apply Pythagoras theorem.
Many max theorems.
Many max theorem, we don't know where we use it. But as architects, I will tell you very honestly, every site runs only by Pythagoras theorem. Because in a land, especially in a landscape architect, when there is no benchmark for us, the first thing which we have to do, find out an axis or a reference line is 3, 4, 5. So we have to imaginarily draw a line on the site and find out what is the hypotenuse, and then we figure out this is a 90 degrees which we want to start with. And similarly, Thales theorem, the similar triangles, these things actually we use it at site because we really don't know what is the the parallel angles which will come. So all these things are actually useful. And suddenly we as landscape architects, we do a lot of curves inside, and those curves we don't know how to fix it up. And we have learned in school if there is an arc or a curve, how do we find the center of that curve? And we draw two chords in that one, bisect the two chords and get a point, and that is exactly the center of it. That is how we do it at site also.
Okay.
Because today we have theodolite, we have all this total station and stuff like that, we don't know how to figure out all these things. But in reality, yes, we do use same compass method and find out using line, thread and all these things, and that's how we actually fix it up at site and we do it. So I think the connection between school and college is totally cut off. That is first thing. Second thing, college and practice, that is also totally cut off. And one beautiful thing which has happened in BArch, especially architecture, is we have this internship. This internship should be a place where you really, because most of the students who join architecture have joined because that they are very good in sketching, probably. That is one of the major reasons. Second thing, they think it doesn't have max. Yeah, but I totally go by the other way around. Mathematics is the fundamental of architecture. Without max, there is nothing in architecture. Because every single volumes which is giving some feelings to you is derived from the mathematics. These proportions and these volumes really have some kind of resonance with us. Like for example, when you go to a cathedral or any church or something, that volume actually makes an impact on us in terms of feelings. We may not be a Christian also, but we will really respond to that volume. We kind of find a solace in that volume. And these volumes have been scientifically studied, and these are the heights. That's exactly why Le Corbusier used the golden rectangle proportions in his buildings. That's why Andrea Palladio found out his own proportions, and he did it in his villa. So I presume today, in today's context, if you are not very familiar with these proportions, with these kind of numbers, I am very sure you will not be able, maybe you can do design, anyone can do design. That's why Supreme Court has told you can do, anyone can do design. But how exactly you stand out? It's only through these proportions and these numbers. And if you are really not sure about these numbers, you are going to have a tough time. Okay. See, landscape, the word itself says land. And for one thing which I have to tell is every architecture student should be first taught about land. Because yes, many people have done thesis in even in space and stuff like that, but for sure we are going to do design only for the land. No, when it comes to landscape, it is not gardening or anything. Gardening is a separate topic altogether, but landscape is the first thing which comes to any architect. That should exactly come to the the context is very important, where you are going to do the design. So if you don't know about the terrain, if you don't know about the soil, if you don't know about the aquifer, what is happening, if you don't know about the water lines, if you don't know about the tectonics behind the soil, I think your architecture is absolutely going to be scraped off by the land. Absolutely. You will have a landslide might happen. Your color of the building will change. Termites will come. So land has got a much more empowering or overpowering character towards your architecture. So if you are not synonym with the land, or if you are not in sync with the land, your architecture is going to be totally wiped out. Whatever you are feeling for your spaces, whatever your intent behind the architecture will not be considered as an intent at all by the land. So the land has got a serious character, and if you are not obeying to its characteristics, your architecture is nullified. Because we really don't know. I mean, though Chola period's big temple is there, but we really don't know where their palace is. So that's exactly what we are telling. So they never bother about all those things. So the land doesn't bother about your greatness. But if you know about the greatness of the land, your architecture will be like, celebrated by the land itself. And that's exactly why still pyramids are still staying there. So they knew about the land, they knew about everything about the land. So the moment you know about the land, its contour, it's like, water lines, its tectonic breaking plates and stuff like that, your architecture is going to be very, very minimalistic. You will start to be understanding, like, why you shouldn't be doing it. That's more important, because most of the times, like, the clients will give you these kind of benchmarks where it will be trying to overpower the land, trying to say, like, I want to have a building on one single column, the whole building should be this way and that way. Yes, it is doable, it is possible, I am not telling, but are we really responding to the context is more important. Is it really needed? And that is exactly where we have to understand, like, how our ancestors have really worked out. They have always been, like, in response to the nature. They have always been in tandem with the nature. They were never, like, absolutely tangential to whatever nature has given to us. So sometimes even houses, like, in vernacular styles, if you notice, some houses will be very narrow. We really think, like, if they had so much of land, why did they go so narrow? But they would have understood, like, that is exactly, it will work out there. In that particular land, this is exactly how it will work out. They even had, like, a very great response to the nature also, in terms of, like, weather conditions and climate. So if it is going to be too hot, that's why if you notice, like, all the small gullies in villages and the old part of Madras, they will have, like, very, very narrow streets where the shade of the other building will fall on the other building. So we will always have the cooler effect throughout the day. And it's more or less like the similar character is even seen in Beirut. It's seen in most of these older parts of, like, civilizations. So they had a very, very sensible way of responding towards the situation, the land, its weather conditions, and how the humidity is and everything. But in today's context, what has happened, because, like, we can create all these things by ourselves, artificially, by AC and stuff like that. We want to, like, push our limits. We want to just push our limits and showcase to the nature that yes, we can do something of our own self. We are really not concerned about your constraints. So that is something which is happening actually. But otherwise, if you ask me, like, is it really correct? And then exactly comes the program. There are certain programs where we have to adhere to these kind of artificial technology also. Say for example, if you want to go for a hospital, naturally you cannot tell, like, I will have a purely ventilated and no AC and stuff like that, because certain things need that kind of setup. So it is our jurisdiction, like, how judgment, it's not judgmental, like, how do I put it, like, how sensible we are towards that kind of situation, that is more important. So we cannot take one single yardstick and put it wherever we want it. So that is my understanding about it. I mean, I would like to pick up on this word called trend. See, to be very frank, there is no trend at all. It is only, like, how open, like, how mentally we are opening up to the society, and how mentally we are opening up to towards the situation which has been probed onto us. We have always been animals who always respond to the outward situation. So when we start doing that, we kind of give a solution which is only having a shell life of 10 years or 5 years or 15 years or 50 years. Now that is exactly what happens in architecture. So how fast you can think about or envisage the future, like for 50 years the shell life of this ideology can stay. Now that is exactly what becomes a trend. Otherwise, like, the outward function or the outward look about this project is never a trend. Because most of them think, like, say for example, if I apply a Shera board, or I'm sorry, to name the name, say some composite boards or like some kind of a jali or a louver or something like that, if that is trending, you will not believe, like, that's the kind of houses which were done when I was kid. If you see all the modern buildings which were happening in 80s, that were having like lot of jalis and concrete jalis and they even if you I mean one of the buildings which I really admire is there is a forensic building near All India Radio on the beach road. It's got a hyperbolic entrance archway which was done as a ferro cement if I'm not wrong, and it still stands good. The point is like when they were able to do it that time, why aren't we doing it today? It's they may tell like craftsmanship and stuff like that. Yes, it is there, but the point is like that's exactly what we are doing today. We have understood the essence of why they did it, in what context they did it. So maybe those people like who have been doing in 80s, they never exhibited why they did it. Today what we are doing is like we are explaining why we did it. I think the explanation behind why the design has been done, even if you notice like websites, Insta pages, they explain how they went about the design. I think that is something which is very, very important today, because most of the times like we really don't know why it was done, and we thought like it was the ego of the architect which they had made that kind of a design. But today the explanation behind the design process takes precedence when it comes to design. So that way I think that is something which is trending, but otherwise the intricate details behind the design flow is always been the same. It is nothing but a direct response to the situation. Absolutely, in landscape also it does happen. Most of the times what happens, we bring in invasive species wherein it will have a beautiful blooming and things like that, but honestly speaking they will be like consuming a lot of water. So we generally like search for indigenous species which is almost mimicking the similar kind of an effect, and which is also very hardy species which doesn't really create a lot of problem in terms of insects and like lot of pests and stuff like that. So we do a lot of research in terms of finding out what is the right species to be used for the similar kind of effect. So when we are doing a lot of projects in government, in private projects also, we try to like push in indigenous species. The reason is like it's quite easily available, first thing. Second thing, the local gardener knows how to like prune it and how to maintain it. And after a point of time, like we also know like they have a Tamil name towards it. So Nandiavata or like all these things, though they have the Latin names, but the local names are also there, which is also like very new to the young generation, because today's young generation, though we always brand them that they are behind mobile phones and stuff like that, but if we give them an opportunity to experiment and explore, I am very sure they are ready to learn it. They are very, very, very eager to learn all these things. It is only that we think that they also know this. I mean, we are always judgmental that they know about it. It's their responsibility to know about it. I don't think so, because today they don't have a situation where they have to respond, because everything is available. Everything is available, literally. You don't have to. I mean, when we used to have this Nataraj pencil when we were writing, until it becomes goes to the black the last bit, we cannot ask one more pencil. And but today, before even the pencil is like 1/3 or whatever it is, we get one more box of pencil to the kid. So they are abundantly like given so much of information that they don't have a situation where they are like having no access kind of a location. So they don't have a reason to even be curious. They don't have a reason to be even like experimental. So that way I think like introduction of or introducing indigenous species where we know the local names and things like that, these kids want to learn about these things, that they want to get the pride of like our culture have so much of information. I would immediately say like it is just in your house itself. The first thing like I mean though that is also slowly degrading, but I have to say our grannies were the best. They used to do puja at least at home, or at least have some get some tulasi from the tulasi pot and things like that, or some jasmine will be there at least. So slowly like most of them don't even know like jasmine is a wine, like where it is like a creeper, it will grow and the jasmine will be like blooming. We have seen houses having jasmine creepers all over their porch and things like that. Today I don't know many kids have seen it or not also. So I think that is exactly where we have to, you should start from home. So that is first thing. Second thing, even if they are living in an apartment or something where they cannot really, getting to learn from their local neighborhood parks, or even going outside. That will be a great experiment, like where they can find out what, and even schools also should be like teaching these local species and experiment, like probably like Semmodi Punga or Adayar Eco Park. These are places where they can go and learn the local varieties, which is slowly picking up. I'm sure it is picking up because there are a lot of youngsters like who want to bring up these kind of thing, and even government is also very serious on this one because they want to bring this native species in a very serious way. That's why, like if you notice today, like we have proposals like Pallikarnai Marsh is going to get revamped. Adayar Eco Park, the Tolkapiyar Punga is also getting revamped, and many such places are also coming along the throughout Tamil Nadu. It's not only in Tamil Nadu, pan India projects are happening in these lines. And when you told about this wildflowers and wild species and all, I think we lovely days, I should be very happy that we belong to this 80s 90s zone where we had this summer vacation where we used to go to our native and we used to do all this stuff. But today I think everyone have got this vacation zone where they go to Andamans or they probably go to like Bali and stuff. They never go to their villages. So I think that is something where we are totally getting uprooted from our base. Yeah. So I think that is something which grandparents or parents can actually think about, like going back to their villages and get to know what exactly it is, and which is actually happening vice versa in other countries. In abroad, people are actually doing that. They going to their country place, they going to their the old villages and stuff like that, but which we should be doing it. Historical things in especially in Chennai, if you notice, like there's though there are a lot of people talking about historical things only through photographs, but truly speaking, like Tamil Nadu or especially Chennai is a beautiful place for a lot of lakes, but we have like literally sold it out, or rather we have like totally dumped it and like closed it. I would like to share one small information. Like when there were like heavy rains, like we human beings are always like still have this primitive ideology of how to find the routes. So what happens, like whenever I go from the place where I live is in Mandavalli, if I have to go from Mandavalli towards Kanjipuram or rather Poondamalli, Porur, I will never take a route through Vallur Kottam. It will always be inundated. So that exactly. So I always take this Chetpat road and along the Ega Theatre and then take this Poondamalli High Road. So we kind of know, like where exactly this water gets collected. That's still happening today also. How much ever you try to like fabricate it with a lot of buildings and roads and culverts and dams and whatever stormwater details, but water knows how to, like water's got a memory of like where it has to come back. Now that is something which is very historical about Chennai. More than the park and other things, historically Chennai is a place of lot of water bodies. Velachery, and there is a lot of like names also, like in Tamil. Thangal means like where water stays, So there is a lot of you can see it even in Google also. Anyone can look at what are the various tank sizes has been named as like one name in Tamil. So Ayyappan Thangal means like there is one tank, and next level is like Eri. So those kind of things are there. So I think Chennai has got a historically water bodies. That is the first thing. Second thing is like every water fringe will always have a marshy area. And that is exactly what this Pallikarnai and all this Adayar Creek and estuary and all these things have a marshy zone. So this is exactly how it was. And our culture where like Mylapore was a separate village, and Triplicane was also a separate village. Though it is just in today's time is only 10 minutes. And Kodambakkam is it's totally out of the country kind of a place. It's such a long distance. So people used to understand like how to only move there only for their own personal reasons, like they had a family there or something like that. The moment all this commercial thing came inside, it was so fast. They didn't have the time to like really understand the local context or the land. Again, I have to come to that point. The moment you, as architects, if you don't really have time to know about the land, you are so forced to take a decision because of the economics. The client will be constantly pressurizing you, like you have to do something for it, and if you are not very much informed about the land, you take a decision against the land. So now, who are all being the party to this pressure is like politicians have been party to the pressure, local contractors, builders, everyone have been like pressurizing on this thing without even like understanding how we should respond to the land. Now that is exactly what has happened to Chennai. So historically speaking, like we have to enrich this particular water inundation issue, and we have to like revive these water bodies in whatever possible ways. I am sure, like in whatever possible ways. That's exactly what there's a lot of drive from the Chennai Corporation also, but it has been politicized or probably put in a different angle. That's a different story altogether. But it is mandatory today. In today's context, we have to understand CRZ is very important, coastal regulation zone, their norms and modalities which we have to follow, and similarly water bodies, rainwater harvesting, how to de-silt these water bodies. These are all very, very important, more than beautifying these the gardens and stuff like that. Because in those days when British occupied time, it was there only there was a white town and the black town kind of a, that time they had a lot of parks. There was something called Madi Punga, the central square which today it is there. It was a huge park which had even a zoo inside. So many things were there. But are we really like responding towards the water body is more important. If you are not responding to the water body, like it is going to be havoc. I mean, even if it is like, if you have to say how these parks have been envisaged, it is like I mean, though it will be very cruel to say, but still I have to say it is just a small bit of trade-off to all this kind of built spaces. If you're going to like construct for something around acres of apartments, it's just a small amount of land parcel for just for you to breathe alone. It's a small trade-off towards this kind of a built entity. But honestly speaking, like are we really doing justice to it in terms of what should be the percentage of open spaces towards the constructed space? Now that is something which is a serious topic which we have to really go and check out, especially in these kind of urban spaces, because now that is exactly the drive which is happening in Chennai Corporation, where OSR is becoming a serious entity. You cannot simply like there is no more formality behind this OSR. OSR becomes a real component where it becomes open space reservation, becomes a serious component where you cannot simply trade it off just like that for any built element, because the moment they have understood they are the green spaces which is going to like take care of the air quality, the pollution control and all these things. I think now they have like slowly started like giving more weightage to this OSR. So now you can notice like many OSRs are converted into parks. Many OSRs are being like maintained by the apartment themselves, and that is exactly how it has been understood. Whereas from the government side, like yes, from Chennai Corporation or any other corporation, they do allocate parks, but how designed are the parks for the local context is something still questionable. Okay. Why? Because we cannot have a same yard scale like where we have a yoga meditation center, we have a jogging track and everything. We cannot do that. We need to, as architects, as a designer, though these projects come to us, we have to really question what kind of people are there, what is the age, demography, and what are the type of people, when do they exactly come and use this park. So we need to design in those lines.